I'm here at Borders in Redmond, Washington, and I'm with Cynthia Hand, Kimberly Derting, and Ellen Schreiber. And I have a few interview questions for them. I asked in my blog for some questions, and Brittany asks, did you begin writing with the intention of writing a series?
Oh. Let's go first.
Guess we can go left to right. It doesn't matter.
I'll go.
Okay.
Yes. I knew that the story was longer than one book, so in that sense, yes, although I didn't have like a vision for the entire series already laid out, like the last scene of the last book or anything like that. But.
Okay.
And I knew also, by the time I'd sold the Body Finder, I'd actually already written about half of Desires of the Dead, so I was hoping that they decided to do series.
Yeah.
With Once in the Full Moon, I knew that I was going to do 3 books, and when I wrote Vampire Kisses, I had no idea, because I kind of ended it with the first book, but then I was able to get a sequel and a series.
I really like it when there's kind of an end, so that you're not like on the edge of your seat for a whole year until the next book comes out. Okay, the next question is, Doville asks, how do you choose your book titles?
Well, for me, that was hard. I think I started with some weird title like Angel Blood or something that was kind of too edgy or, weird for mine. And then it was about as hard to name the book as it was my children, We sort of went around and around and around, but finally I just sort of made a list of words that appeared in the book, and we sort of went through the list and lit on Unearthly, and it seemed like it worked.
It fit.
Yeah,
I agree, it fits perfect.
And for the Body Finder, it was one of those really weird things where it actually wasn't supposed to be the title. It was a file name on my computer. It was what Violet could do. It was... I was brand new, so I had no idea how it worked. I assumed if a publisher bought it, I thought they named it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought, in my file, it was the Body Finder. That's how I found it, because that was what she could do. So I sent it in, and I just kept waiting for them to call and say, okay, here's your title. And one day I got a call, and they said, Sales and Marketing loves it. And I went, what? That's not supposed to be the title. And then they sent me the cover, and really kind of the mix of the pretty flower on the cover, and then because it has romance in it,
mm-hmm.
and the title, it really does work, but first it was never really supposed to be the Body Finder.
It does work. What about Desires of the Dead?
Desires of the Dead had a completely different title. It was originally it was a line out of the book. It was The Beautiful Dead. I sent it in, and my agent loved it, and my editor loved it, and Sales and Marketing loved it, and about a week later we got a call and said, there's a whole series of books in the UK by Eden McGuire called The Beautiful Dead, and it's coming to the US, and we have to scrap it. And so I went through the whole book again looking for lines, and came up with, there's a line that says Desires of the Dead, so.
I think it works.
Yeah.
Mine just popped in my head like Once in a Blue Moon and Once in a Full Moon. And when it came in, I was like, oh, that's the title.
Yeah, it fits perfect, yeah. Okay. Jessica asks, how much input have you had in the cover of the book?
Well, I felt lucky to have any input, and they asked me right away what are the sort of things I wanted or didn't want, and asked me for examples of covers I liked and versus covers I didn't like, and they included me along the way in terms of sending me images and things they were thinking about, and so. In the end, it was their design, and I was really sort of surprised by what they came up with, but I really loved the cover.
It is beautiful.
Like, I didn't do any of the laying out or picking in the end, but they always sort of ran stuff by me, to see what my impressions were, so.
Good.
And really, they just sent me the file and said, here's what we think your cover should be, and I loved it. That was the end.
Mine, I just loved, they had gotten a model, and when we looked at a couple different models, and we saw this model, and we're like, oh, she's perfect, because I was like, that's Celeste, so, and then they just have shot different shots with her, and, put the color wash and things like that, and I love it. I think it's so beautiful, and it was really lucky, actually, the model emailed me, and so we've been emailing back and forth a little bit, and I've sent her some books for her family, and she's really cool.
Yeah.
So
Is she, do you think she's going to be on the next book?
Yeah, she's going to be at least, I'm sure on all of them, but I know at least the second one, because I've already gotten the second cover.
Oh.
It's not totally finalized, but it's almost there. So, yeah, they work really quick on that.
Yeah,
even
they
before
are
the
fast.
book's finished. So,
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Okay, Vicky asks, which part of writing do you find the most challenging?
Well, I'm currently in the editing process for book 2, and I'm finding it pretty challenging. And I think that's really the hardest part is that first round of edits where there's like big changes to be made. And I think writing the middle of a book is also the hardest part. Like when you're writing the draft, for me, it's always the middle that I have to really like buckle down and get through. But I like to get through it.
Yeah.
The end is worth it, right?
Yep.
And so yeah, but I think the first round of edits is the hardest, like with the publisher for me.
Yeah. For me, I actually like revisions and edits, but I was exactly going to say the middle. It's writing the first draft in the middle, and I'm right there right now, and I'm just slogging through it, feeling like how I'm a terrible writer, this is never going to, and I do it every single time I get to that middle point. I'm like, this is so boring, no one's ever going to want to read this. And that's why I like revisions, I think, because that's where you get to kind of go through and they help you punch it up and figure out where you kind of drifted off your path and figure it all out. But that middle part, man, I love a beginning and I love an ending, and I actually really love revisions, although I don't love reading my revision letter the first time. I usually open it up and think they're on crack while I'm reading it. So then I step away for a day and go, okay, she's right. I really do need to do all these things, but that middle part is just brutal.
Yeah.
And one of the hardest for me is the last copy that you get to look at before it goes to publication, or just the couple ones just before that. So I get very obsessive about like every word, and is this right, and did this meaning come through, and yeah, that's where I just get kind of like OCD or something. I think kicks in, and it's like, oh no, and I was like, can I look at this one more time before it goes?
And it's your last chance.
Yeah,
I'm sure I would
exactly.
be
So I think that's
too.
right, and it's always minutiae. It's always like a one word or something. Did I use that word too much? Do I need to change this, or their hair color, or some kind of quality? It's always like an adjective. I mean, it's always the minutia.
Yeah,
that's where I get really stuck.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think I'd have the same problem. Okay, there's one more question. Meredith asks, have you ever had any of your real-life friends inspire a character, main or supporting, in any of your books, and why?
I tend to name characters after friends and people I know, but not base them on them. So, like, I always say to my friend, yay, there's a Wendy in this book, but she's not you, just to be clear, and so, and especially secondary characters, when I need a name, I usually just grab one from somebody that I know, like part of their name from someone I know, in that way. But there's one character in Unearthly that is based on my high school history teacher, just very closely, and I just did that because I sort of wanted to honor how great that class was, in my high school education. So.
Yeah.
And I do the same naming thing. When I was naming the dead girls in the Body Finder, I contacted all my nieces and said, who wants to be dead girls? And so, and only one niece said, I really don't feel comfortable being a dead girl. So she got to be a different character. But, and then when I went around and asked neighbor girls who were about the same ages, I thought it'd be fun to name teenage girls that I knew. So my friends' daughters and neighbor girls are all kind of the teenage girls in the book. Mostly the tertiary characters, and then like the dead girls. And then as far as, I don't have any characters that are actually based, the same thing, I don't really base characters on, but I will take real life scenarios from real life and plop them down in my book. There's a scene, there's a whole kind of thing in Desires of the Dead that I really pulled out of my daughter and her boyfriend's relationship. It was something she did to him, and she thought it was hilarious, and I thought that would really be funny in the book. So I kind of took it, and I'm not sure he knows it's in there yet, and he will soon enough.
Aunt Libby in the Vampire Kisses series is based on my Aunt Esther and one of my good friends, Andrea. And Andrea's like totally a hippie chick, and she loves Jim Morrison and the Doors and all in the Grateful Dead and stuff. And my aunt was always, you know, like interested in who I was crushed out on, and, you know, talking romantic kind of thing. So I kind of meshed them together for Aunt Libby. And when I was rereading Once in a Full Moon, I didn't necessarily intentionally base, but when I was reading it, my best friend has a daughter who's 14, and although Celeste is a little bit older, her daughter Indigo had a lot of the qualities that Celeste had. It makes, you know, the right choice and does things for her friends and thinks about everybody. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of Indigo in this book, which I thought was kind of neat, and I thought maybe she would identify with that.
Yeah. That's cool. Thank you, ladies, for the interview.
Thank you.